We are Premier League. Say we are Premier League. That's right, after 14 long seasons, Reading FC are back among the big boys. But can these underdogs defy the odds and avoid the dreaded drop? Let's find out. Welcome to Reviving the Royals Season 3. Reading was simply unstoppable in 2026-27. They stormed to the championship title, racking up a record 118 points in the process. But with promotion came uncertainty. Could one giant pixel side make the step up? In 5 games against Premier League opposition since he became manager, they had won just once. And now their squad was smaller than before. Veteran Matt Ritchie had retired and fullback Ashkar Ahmed had left at the end of his contract. Fortunately, the gaffer had a plan, and it involved using his £38 million war chest to raid the championship for youngsters with bags of potential. Towering central defender Joachim Kai Sander arrived from Southampton for £1.4 million, while pacey right-back Elijah Dijkstra joined from Bristol City for £2.5 million. Reading then spent £3.25 million to prize defensive midfielder Jacob Wright away from Norwich City before dropping another £2.75 million on QPR attacking midfielder Kieran Morgan. Kelvin Ehibhatiomhan had been Reading's top scorer in League One and the Championship, but Reading's only other striking option was Basil Tuma. To provide competition for places up front, the Royals brought in another Southampton player, Jay Robinson, for £2 million. Last but certainly not least was Reading's biggest signing of the summer, Nestori Irankunda, who joined from Watford for a whopping £7.35 million. For a club of Reading's size, this was a massive outlay for one player. It remained to be seen whether the winger could justify it. Irankunda's arrival meant there was no room for Mamadi Kamara, who was allowed to go to Jagiellonia Białystok in Poland for £1.5 million. After all of that, this was Reading's starting 11, but would it be enough? Only time would tell. Apart from the new signings, One Giant Pixel also decided to promote a couple of players from the youth academy before immediately sending them out on loan. Defensive midfielder Jayden Bourne joined Südtirol in Italy for 2 years, while goalkeeper Joseph Jenkins went to Dutch giants Feyenoord for the same amount of time. Elsewhere in the academy, attacking midfielder Joshua Newton looked like he was going to be a sensation in the future, as did right winger Billy Sutton, but they would be staying right where they were for now. Fun fact, Reading have never lost their first match of a Premier League season. David Moyes' Everton arrived at the SCL on the opening day hoping to change all of that. But spoiler alert, they couldn't. Irankunda had a debut to remember as he finished off a flying move just 20 minutes in before Ehibhatiomhan opened his account for the season not long after that. Tierno Barry's stats at halftime summed up Everton's performance up to that point, and things went from bad to worse after the break. Irankunda bagged his second goal of the afternoon from Savage's low cross, and then another debutant, substitute Jay Robinson, finished things off. Robinson even brought out the Cole Palmer celebration, and just look at David Moyes, absolutely fuming. Now there are some grounds you immediately look forward to visiting when you get promoted to the Premier League, and Old Trafford is certainly one of them. But Reading got off to a nightmare start at the Theatre of Dreams as Brian Mbumo's first-time pass was hammered into the top corner by Benjamin Seshko. The Royals refused to let their heads drop, and straight from kick-off, Irankunda fired against the post before Ehibhatiomhan gobbled up the rebound. Irankunda and Daniel Trezeguet both forced Seny Lomans into fine saves either side of half-time. Then, with less than quarter of an hour remaining, the former gleefully accepted a pass from Ehibhatiomhan, and just look at that for a composed finish. What a result this was, and it must have filled Reading with confidence as they began their Carabao Cup campaign. Having seen off Millwall in the second round, they welcomed Chelsea to the SCL Stadium in round 3. The visitors were always going to provide a stern test, especially with players like Spanish winger Nico Williams in their lineup. And so it proved. Moises Caicedo tapped in the opener after David Fofana's shot had been saved, before Fofana himself curled a beauty into the top corner to make it 2-0 just before half-time. Reading knew they had to score next, and they did just that when Kieran Morgan turned his man inside out and found the bottom corner. But any hope of a miraculous comeback was extinguished in the final few minutes as Keanu Dyer converted Fofana's fiercely struck cross. The Royals would not have wanted to go out of the Carabao Cup at such an early stage, but one silver lining was that they could now concentrate on the league for a while. Reading's home game against Tottenham gave them the chance to show how far they had come since being knocked out of the FA Cup by Spurs the previous season. Welsh midfielder Charlie Savage got the ball rolling with his first goal of the campaign, while Ben Elliott squeezed a shot past Jan Oblak straight after half-time. This dreadful pass from Mathis Tel summed things up from a Tottenham point of view before Iran Kunda made it 3 with an unstoppable shot. There was still time for substitute Jay Robinson to get on the end of passes from Morgan and Chirewa to complete a truly miserable afternoon for the Spurs players and their travelling fans. Reading were flying and they continued their fine form against Sunderland at the Stadium of Light. They went ahead through yet another goal from Iran Kunda, but the hosts hauled themselves level as Tyreek Mitchell fired into the roof of the net just before the break. But then came a goal fit to win any game. It all started when Piers Charles plucked a Kenneth Taylor cross out of the air. The ball was moved up the pitch with pace, purpose and precision. All of a sudden the Royals were bearing down on the Sunderland penalty area, and when Iran Kunda picked out Morgan, he made space for himself before firing home. Truly stunning. Shame about the celebration though. Drink it in, Reading fans. At the season's halfway point, the Royals somehow found themselves in second place in the Premier League, just 4 points behind table-topping Liverpool. Could the newly promoted side really remain in the Champions League places? Well, apparently the owners thought so, as they added more than £45 million to their transfer kitty. This meant that Reading had almost £60 million to spend as the January transfer window opened, and they got to work straight away, raiding Belgian side KRC Genk for the much-coveted Konstantinos Karetsas. The Greek attacking midfielder arrived for £15.5 million, making him the club's record signing. But that record did not last for long. They immediately spent just over £30 million on Belgian winger Julian Duranville from Osasuna, who were toiling away in the bottom half of La Liga. This was a real statement of intent, and both players went straight into the Royal starting 11, with Daniel Chirewa and Ben Elliott dropping to the bench. Before the window shut, striker Basil Tuma was allowed to join Plymouth Argyle for £850,000, while defensive midfielder Shea Spencer went to Motor Lublin in Poland for just over £500,000. Back on the pitch, Reading began their FA Cup campaign with a win over Sheffield United in the third round, before they travelled to the CBS Arena to face Coventry in the fourth. Karetsas and Duranville both started, but they could only look on in horror as Coventry struck twice in the opening 25 minutes. Zion Fleming bagged the first before setting up Brandon Thomas Asante for the second. Piers Charles should definitely have done better with that one. Reading were shell-shocked, but managed to pull one back on the stroke of half-time as a move involving both of their new signings ended with Ehibhatiomhan finding the net. And after Jack Rudoni and Liam Kitching both missed presentable chances just after the break, the Royals went straight up the other end and equalised through Karetsas. After that, it was one-way traffic, and substitute Kieran Morgan finally put the Royals ahead in the latter stages. Then another sub, Jay Robinson, finished things off from Iran Kunda's pass in added time. Goals from Iran Kunda and Duranville helped Reading to a 2-1 win over Newcastle at the SCL in the next round of the competition. Then, with a place at Wembley at stake, an extra time goal from Duranville gave them another 2-1 win, this time over Crystal Palace at Selhurst Park. Reading had already enjoyed success at Wembley under One Giant Pixel, having beaten Wigan in the final of the Virtue Trophy in 2026. But winning an FA Cup semi-final against Manchester City, now under the stewardship of Eddie Howe, was a different proposition entirely. Reading started well, and Iran Kunda twice went close but was denied by City goalkeeper Gianluigi Donnarumma on both occasions. Then, with half-time approaching, Karetsas found Duranville down the left, and his low ball across was bundled in by Ehibhatiomhan. Make no mistake, the Royals fully deserve their lead, but you are unlikely to see a scrappier goal. It basically hit the striker and dribbled over the line. That spurred Manchester City into action, but they had to wait until just before the hour mark for their first shot on target. Straight afterwards, Duranville ran into trouble, and Issa Kabore fired in this effort that Charles managed to claw away. City huffed and puffed after that, but Reading kept the ball so well that they could not find a way back. And just look at those scenes at the final whistle. Victory meant that the Royals would be returning to this famous stadium at the end of the season to take on Leeds United in the FA Cup final, but more on that later. While they were making progress in the Cup, Reading also kept winning games in the Premier League. League. The front three of Duranville, Irankunda and Ehibhatiomhan all scored as they beat Aston Villa 3-0 at the SCL Stadium, and Duranville added another to his tally as they ran out 1-0 winners at home against Brentford. That victory secured a top 4 finish for Reading and gave them Champions League football for the first time in the club's history. But could they catch Liverpool at the top of the table? To do so, they would have to get a result at Anfield, which would be easier said than done given the quality in the Reds lineup. But they got off to the perfect start when Irankunda latched onto Jacob Wright's pinpoint pass and swept the ball beyond Georgi Mamadashvili. The hosts went straight up the other end, and when Dijkstra's acrobatic clearance fell to Florian Wirtz, he produced a quite astonishing finish to equalise. Liverpool ramped up the pressure and missed a succession of chances through Alexander Isak and Cody Gakpo, much to the chagrin of boss Arne Slot. And the Royals made them pay as Caretsas picked out Ehibhatiomhan and he cushioned the ball into the bottom corner. There was still time for Isak to miss one more gilt-edged opportunity as Reading held on for what at the time felt like a massive win. Going into the final game of the season, Reading were 3 points behind Liverpool with an inferior goal difference. They knew they would have to beat Ipswich Town at the SCL and hoped that the Reds were defeated at Nottingham Forest to have any hope of lifting that trophy. And the Royals kept their side of the bargain as goals from Irankunda and Elliott gave them a 2-0 win over their opponents from Suffolk. But the lack of celebrations at the final whistle should tell you everything you need to know. Yes, Liverpool had eked out a 1-1 draw at Forest to win the title by a single point. Reading were forced to put their disappointment to one side as they still had to face Leeds United in the FA Cup final. The Royals had never won this famous trophy before, so this was a real chance for them to make history. But it was the Championship side that made the brighter start, and Pereira had to be at his best to make 2 saves in quick succession from Noah Okafor and Al Tanaka. Then came the sucker punch. With half-time looming, Caretsas played it through to Ehibhatiomhan and he ran on before making no mistake with the finish. Leeds did not give up and got back on level terms just before the hour mark as Sean Longstaff pounced on Andre Garcia's mistake. Their fans must have been sensing a momentous upset at that point, but Reading's superior quality soon put pay to those hopes. Irankunda got onto the end of Ehibhatiomhan's exquisite through ball and hit the post before hammering home the rebound to put them ahead once again. Then, with fewer than 10 minutes remaining, substitute Bradley Ibrahim's cute pass allowed Ehibhatiomhan to put the result beyond doubt. As the final whistle blew, Reading's players and fans could celebrate winning yet another trophy, the 4th since One Giant Pixel took over as manager. But this was by far the biggest. Captain Joel Pereira got the party started and brought the curtain down on what had been a truly magnificent season for the Royals. Kelvin Ehibhatiomhan was named the Premier League Player of the Year, having picked up the Golden Boot after scoring a total of 27 goals in the top flight. He was also 3rd in the assists table with 10, while Daniel Trerewa was 4th with 9. And Joel Pereira had the 2nd highest number of clean sheets. They were getting used to bus parades in Reading and the future was looking bright for the town's football club. But could they go one better in the league next season and win the title? And how would they get on in Europe? To find out, tune in next time. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to leave a like or even subscribe to the channel. Goodbye for now.